Today, guys, we're going to be tearing down this 1967 David Brown 780. This was one that Dad bought at a sale several years ago, and I kind of adopted. Came with a loader on it, got the not so common over here in the States 12-speed transmission in it. Came with good tires and all those sorts, but motor didn't sound real good and didn't start real good, so we tore it down in a YouTube video, and that was the 2-week rebuild question mark that I'll link in the description. And we slapped this 885 motor in that we thought was better. Well, turns out it's not a lot better. It will just start. Doesn't matter what temperature it is. It's 1.5 to 2 minutes to start every time. Doesn't matter if the cold start valve's on or not. Has a funny clunk when you crank it, and it has a funny squeak while it's running. So stay tuned if you want to see the carnage that may have gone on inside this engine. Well, nothing crazy in here yet. I mean, I didn't check valve clearances or anything. We're going to do that because it might need new valves. We don't know. I haven't seen the rest of it, but it's looking pretty engine looking in here. Nothing weird, nothing crazy. No abnormal rust on anything. I mean, a little bit, but considering the tractor this motor came out of had 2 gears out of the 12-speed that's in an 885, and it was like low 1 and low 2 because the transmission was sat for like 20 years with no oil in it and just water. That's what happened to that one. But the engine was still good, and like the 3-point hitch arms were good, and there was some other stuff we did save off that one that works still good, like this engine and injection pump and some other things. So we've got lots of parts off here. I wanted to show you guys this. Nothing bad going on inside the intake manifold. The bolts were super oily, like super oily. I was really concerned what I was going to find in there, but they weren't rusty, so that's actually good. I don't know what that noise was. Yeah, I probably should have sucked the dirt off there with a vacuum or something. Oh well. All the valves move up and down, so it's not like we have a stuck valve on our hands. Some of them sound a little funny, but nothing crazy there. I also looked, I've had this happen before on an 880 we had. So if you've got one that's really sooty exhaust for no reason, check this little screw here on your rocker shaft. Because that screw on our 880 when we bought it was sitting, right there. Loose, not even in the thing. So it was filling the rocker cover full of oil. It was dripping oil out the breather, and it was leaking down past the exhaust valves into the head and going out and up the exhaust. And it would actually shoot like this jelly-like tar stuff out of the exhaust, which was really bad. That was one of the many things wrong with that tractor, and some still are wrong with that tractor. Next thing, we're draining the radiator. I'm not going to pull the exhaust manifold off. I probably should have waited to pull the intake manifold off too until I pulled the head, but we got an oil line there too. And then we'll see what's going on down in there, and then we'll drain the oil. So what did we find? The antifreeze was because I was too impatient to wait for it to drain back through here, through the water pump, and I didn't want to wait, so I just pulled it. And leaked most of it still down into the subframe and into the bucket. Yeah, they're dirty. There's not much wear in there. I've torn down motors that had 100 thousandths wear in the sleeves. These do not feel bad. There's a lot of coke in there, burnt on carbon and stuff. But again, I've had worse engines apart than this. So I'm thinking our problems are probably over here, and I have not seen the bottom of this yet. These are down. Those really don't look that bad either. They're just rusty and...
No, you could fit a fingernail underneath there. This one's not sealing, this one's not sealing.
Oh, I feel that.
That's
so,
it.
That's the problem. Valve seat.
This isn't sealing either.
I thought so. I thought it was this cylinder and this cylinder. But we will continue tearing into this another day. And you guys will see it just here in a second. So it's the next day. While I was at work, Dad disassembled this head. I'm going to show you how to take this valve out here in a second. It's pretty simple. You don't need a lot of fancy tools, even though fancy tools exist. So that right there doesn't look too terrible. I mean, you can see there's some buildup on it. That, however, so you can see that right there. It's not a real even finish. It's real pitted. That right there is what our problem is. That's why it was missing and shooting fire, and didn't seem like it had a lot of power, because all the power is escaping out the exhaust valves before it's ready to let it exhaust. They're pretty dirty. We get a new set. Riddled me this. So it was $75 for a set of valves for this motor from England, from wherever we got them. I think Agriline Supply maybe. And wherever Dad looked at them for the US, they're $150. Riddle me that one. Another thing we got to do today, we're going to take the pistons out, rods out, look at the rod bearings. They're probably fine because this had pretty decent oil pressure. It'd make oil pressure before it would start, to be honest with you. It was terrible to start. We're going to look at the rings and the ring lands and the piston and make sure that they are not destroyed, and that's causing a power issue as well, because it could. Because we have it this far apart, we might as well finish it. I'm going to use a bore micrometer and check the bore. It is worn. You can't see much crosshatch in there anymore. There's still a little bit. But you see the green reflection from the antifreeze that I spilled in there? That's bad. You don't want to see reflection in your bore. It means it's too shiny. It's not going to hold good oil, and it's going to wear stuff because you're not having oil on your rings. So I'm going to use my bore mic here. And this is one I picked up. I bought a whole toolbox full of stuff for work, and this was in there, and I don't need 3 of these at work. I only need 1, so I saved this one for at home, and I can use it on engines. That's how this guy works. It's just like a regular micrometer, except you get these little standards at this end you put on. There's all different length ones here, and then this only goes out a 1/2 inch, but what I need to measure to 3 15/16. Well, I put this little 500 thousandths or 0.5, it's 1/2 inch little standard in there, bolt that on this shaft, and then all of a sudden I can go from 3.5 to 4 inches with that. And these are supposed to be 3 15/16, which is 3.9375. And what I was getting with this, just kind of wiggle it back and forth this way and then up and down. So you want the tightest spot going up and down and the loosest spot going side to side. I'm getting, so we have that standard in there that's a 1/2 inch. So that's going to be a 9, 925, 35 to the 10, 40, 41, 941. So it's really not worn that much. My dad was concerned because there's a big step there, but I think a lot of it's carbon buildup because this thing was running like crap. So that's not terribly concerning. I'm going to hone it out next couple days here while I'm waiting for parts to get in. That head's going to have to go to the machine shop and get worked on and get those seats cleaned up and maybe deck it too. I haven't wire wheeled it up and cleaned it yet to see how bad it is. But we'll see what we get with. So what you're going to want to do to take these out, I have a 21mm socket here because it's not one we use a whole lot. It's not size specific, just something of that size. 3/4 will work. Set that over there. Set your head flat on a bench. Yeah, my hammer handle's broken. Oh well. Give it a good smack. I didn't smack it hard enough. It's a little sticky. Won't let me come out of there. I'm not hitting it hard enough, one or the other. There we go. So I smacked it. Keeper came out, and actually both came out at once. They don't always do that. So you may have to hit it again to get your second keeper out. But keep track of those because you're going to want those if you're using the same parts, which I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet if we're going to save them on this one. But there's a spring, there's a little retainer washer thingy. There's the keepers. And that's all there really is to it. And then you can tip the head over and plop your valve out, and there you are. They're not super hard to do. You don't need specialty tools to do them. On the bigger engines, we'll use a great big wrench to push them down. We'll like hook it on something and push down, straddling the valve. But on these little ones, a socket will work just fine. Oh, and I thought I had the worst valve a minute ago. Hoo-wee. That is probably the worst one. So what we think happened here is this tractor that the engine came out of, as well as this tractor, were sitting traded in at a dealer for a long time. And they sat out in the trade-in lot, and the exhaust was uncovered on that one. This one, the exhaust was covered, but not real well. But the one that motor came out of, which is not a 780, it's an 885, but it's the same motor basically with a few tiny little details different because it was a later tractor. So exhaust is uncovered. Valves were closed on whichever cylinders those were. I do not remember which valve came out of which cylinder because I didn't do it. But water went in the exhaust ports out of the manifold, and the straight pipe that wasn't covered up because it had a similar thing on it like that, but that had a muffler on it when we got it. The other tractor, it was just a pipe, not covered. So water got in there and it sat on top of the valves in here and slowly rusted its way down through. Like the edge is gone off of that one. It's not sharp. Valves normally have a nice crisp edge on them, or relatively crisp edge on them. Yeah, see, that one's all goobered up too. So the water got in there and sat on there and caused a problem because it rusted that away. So while I'm at it, I'm going to make sure, because you can see a little bit of rust lines going down there in that bore. I'm going to make sure the rings aren't like tore up, or the bore doesn't have a big rust ring in it like the motor I took out of this tractor, which is under the bench there for a rainy day when I need another one of these motors. I'll get it bored out, but it wasn't worth it when we had that one, which ran better at the time, to throw back in this. Been about a week. I got valves in, I got valve springs in, and I got valve retainers in, and I got the head all wire wheeled up. Not perfect, but pretty good. And it's gonna get sent off to the shop, and it's gonna get new valve seats cut in, and probably we're gonna deck it because it's kind of a big step there. Not too bad, but definitely noticeable. And I'll lose some compression if the valves are sitting back in there a little deeper, so I figure we might as well just deck it. And we got her covered up because we got some other projects going on around here. This will hopefully be running here in a day or two. And this should be in a week or so after we get the head back, depending on how long the wait is at the machine shop. Usually it's not too bad. The time has come to hone the engine. I've got the brand new Flex Hone, made in USA. Dingle ball hone, I guess is the name I've heard for them. Instead of the 2 or 3 stone one. We're going to try one of these out because we hone a lot of cylinders of this diameter, so it made sense to spend some extra money to get a hone that's going to last a lot longer. I got our drill here. These guys did not sponsor me or anything like that. I just thought, well, if I find a tool that works, why not let you guys know about it? So here we go. Wow, that is a goofy looking thing if I've ever seen one. Huh. That's pretty cool looking. Wonder who dreamed this up. I'll have to look that up. Come on. So, it's better in there. The hone did a really nice job. As you can see, there's some crosshatch pattern going on there. It's not a 45 degree per se, but there's crosshatch in there. But you can see right there, there's a lot of pitting going on. You can see right down there at the bottom, actually, where the wrist pin was at in this motor. You can see the clear circles where the piston was sitting for a long time. And you can see where the rings were in there too, which is not good. But this isn't a big, being demanded of high horsepower, high output farm tractor. This is going to be my use around home loader tractor. It's cool. So instead of waiting like 2 months to get this block board at the machine shop, it may or may not take that long depending on how busy they are. They're kind of busy right now, so the head's going to take about 3 weeks to get it machined. We've got 20 over rings we're going to put in this, and we're going to set the grind the ring gap in to make them fit. So I may take off a little more material here than say a normal hone job would, a couple thousandths, whereas I may try to take off 5 or 10, which may take a while, but this hone's moving a lot of material though too. So I'm going to try to clean that up a little more. You can still see a little bit of scoring there. There's a vertical line from where the piston was dragging the piece of grit or something around. There's similar lines on the bearings, so I wonder if this didn't get rust in the wheel pan, and then when we started it to see if it could run before we got the oil changed, if it didn't send some rust through the oil system and the filter didn't catch it or what have you happened. Or it was ahead of the filter in the oil passageways. But it is doing a nice job. It's also designed to hone other things. So if you have like a cross-year-old hole or something, it's supposed to help hone that in and deburr it. And it's doing a nice job at the top here of deburring that edge. It's breaking that edge nicely, which isn't really what I need, but it's okay. It is working well. It's all engine block is not the greatest, and failure on my part. So you can see we got crosshatch in there somewhat. We got that glazed mess. It should not shine like the journal on the crank, guys. It should not shine like that up there. It should be more like that duller silver than that real shiny shine that we got going on in there. So I'm going to do these other 2 cylinders and we'll see what we can get out of them, and I'm going to try to get a little more out of this one, see if I can't get that to clean up a little better. So that's what it looks like right after I pull the hone out of the hole. There's still a little bit of scoring there from a piston at the top. It ate my rag yet again, so I may just say forget it with the rags. Doing it this way, and I'll just blow it out with oil and compressed air later. So I'm going to wipe that down, and we're going to take a look real close and see how we did here. Alright, I got her all cleaned up. That's just a grease smear there, I think. No, that's actually a score from the piston. That's not exactly ideal. I'll get you guys down in there a little better. There's a little bit of pitting up there at the top. A little bit there on the side still. You can see clearly the circle there and the dot there, the line there on the side where the wrist pin was at. If I wanted to spend a bunch of time and money on this, I would definitely get it bored, but I don't have a lot of time or money to spend right now. So we're just going to run it as it is. If it uses lots of oil, well, in a couple years after the rest of the tractor proves itself, maybe it'll get pulled apart and honed and bored instead of just honed. Or maybe we'll try another form of cleaning her up on the inside. But we'll have to see how this does. This may be perfectly fine. This may run 20 years with no problems. Who knows? We'll find out. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and I got to polish the crank and do some other things, and we'll just keep moving forward as parts and time becomes available. So I did a bit more hone in there because we're putting oversized rings in it. I took more out and went longer than you're supposed to go with the hone, but I got it, most of the scratches cleaned out. There's still a little bit there, but I can't feel it. I can just see it. Front cylinder, there's a little spot I can still feel in there. But overall, a lot better. It really cleaned it up. And the hone, you can run it longer than it says to if you want to remove more material like I did for this. And it works just the same. Just keep changing your oil. You get in there, pull it out, wipe your bore out kind of good. Stick it in your bucket of oil again and go. And I got some decent crosshatch going on there. No, it's not machine shop perfect or anything, but it'll definitely hold oil and keep these rings from wearing out immediately.